Hello.
Hello. Since we've been sitting here talking about interesting things that we feel like would be really good podcast material, we decided to start.
Just hit record and see what happens.
But we have notes, actual in our hand notes.
Yeah. So welcome to episode 3 of Crash Out Alchemy. We've labeled this one, don't call it a spiritual awakening unless you want to cry in the shower.
Which turned out to be true for me yesterday, which is so weird. I'm doing the look at you on the screen thing.
Yeah, as hairdressers, we learned to talk in the mirror. So now we just talk to each other like this.
Yeah.
And it's weird and creepy and welcome to being a hairdresser.
Right. But it's actually, I think it translates well for being a podcaster because
Probably, yeah.
I feel like, and I'm sure somebody will be kind enough to, but I feel like I'm better to look at full front because my profile, my profile is a lot to, take in. And I noticed, that's why I glanced at the last couple of episodes that we put out, and that was what I was like, just look into the camera. But no, what I was saying was we were calling it, don't call it a spiritual awakening unless you want to cry in the shower. I was crying in the shower yesterday, not because of a spiritual awakening, but kind of,
right? It is adjacent to, or it's like symptomatic of the process that you've been through. When you accidentally think that you're regressing, which both of us had an experience yesterday where I was like, I feel so sad. I'm supposed to be above sadness, and like,
yeah.
I'm further along in my journey or some shit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to do my inventory on, was that what I was doing? Was I holding myself to, I am so guilty of intellectualizing feelings. Like, I didn't realize until probably a year or two ago that was what I thought feelings was
right,
not the part of it being like through the body. I'm also going to try not to touch my microphone 897 times like I did the last 2 episodes back. I totally bucked myself off with that. I literally just air between my ears. I don't remember what was I talking about?
To me, it looked like regression, I think, is where I was judging myself for having emotion.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about not knowing that we're supposed to feel the uncomfortable parts in our body, in our literal meat suit, which is something that we're going to talk about too. I didn't realize that was a part of feeling. And so I have spent as much time, effort, and energy trying to keep all of that from running through my body that it feels really scary to me, which is part of what happened to me, why I ended up crying in the shower. I don't know why. I think I had a migraine yesterday. I had a really bad headache with a lot of just some nausea. Mostly it was the nausea and the near-death experience that I had talked about previously came from I'd had surgery. I was given 2 different types of anti-nausea medicine that we didn't know that I was allergic to, Phenergan and Zofran. And my body doesn't metabolize it. It just stores in my liver until my liver became toxic and then failed, which caused kidney failure. So my body just started shutting down. And oddly enough, a lot of the symptoms that I have, the main symptom that I was complaining about, and this took place over a course of about 3 months. So it was a crazy descent, but I was nauseous and vomiting a lot. And so the answer to that was to give me more of the medicine. And so I was just being poisoned. So yesterday when the headache came on and I started feeling this nausea, it was nausea on that level of, oh my God, my whole body, there wasn't a part of my body that felt comfortable. It wasn't like just upset stomach nausea, like, ew, I ate too much or whatever. It was just every part of my body felt sick. And I immediately just triggered into that old thinking of, I'm in a meat suit that isn't functioning. Oh my gosh. And one of the things that happened to me since my being sick took place over that long was my brain just started telling me the story was that this is it, or you die.
Right.
That and I couldn't conceptualize getting better or feeling better for a really long time because there just was no, and the doctors, I was being treated, like there was plenty of medical care, but they just didn't know what was going on. And so that felt real defeating. And then when they started doing last ditch effort stuff, like a nuclear medicine scan, just like crazy stuff where you're like, oh, they're going to figure out what's wrong with me in my autopsy.
Right.
About to happen. That panic. And it sounds dramatic, and I don't really know energetically. There was a lot going on. We'll have a woo-woo moment, but Joan and I were just talking about the fact that Mars was in Libra, which is her sign, full moon in Aquarius, which is mine, Lionsgate portal today, the planetary lining, the Perseid meteor shower.
Mercury just went retrograde, or I mean, stationary, but we're in that shadow
another
period.
Week,
several other planets are still retrograde.
Yeah, Jupiter and Pluto. Yeah, so energetically, astrologically fucked is the way it felt.
This week is super intense. Even my astrologer was like, I'm offering discounted sessions. I DM'd him and was like, me.
You are my astrologer. I'm an astrologer.
We should bring him on at some point.
Oh, my gosh.
He'd probably be happy to. He'll hate that I call him adorable, but he's adorable. And he explains things really well. As Hellenistic astrology.
Okay, speed agree. I'm learning what, after you said Hellenistic, it's basic, Hellenistic. There's several types.
Don't catch me on.
It doesn't matter. I want to learn it all, and I do what most people do. I look at my stuff and Barrett's and my kids, grandkids.
He helped me, and shout out Peter Guthrie, I'll tag him in this, but he helped me really understand that the houses play such an important role, and that your rising sign is just absolutely super important.
Well, I just learned that. I don't even, Chani is her first name.
Oh yeah, I like her too.
Yeah. And she was explaining, she's all about the rising sign. And she said, if you don't know the time of birth or place of birth and all you know is your sun sign, then sure, go with that. But she was talking about your rising sign. Well, I'm a Gemini rising. And once I learned that and then learned how your rising sign affects you, I was like, I spent the first half of my life as a Gemini.
Right.
And that is why, shout out to Carter and Allie, that my Gemini friends that have been, we should have them on. Former crash outs, don't crash out again. I think that's why we bonded so quickly is, that Gemini. My ex-husband's also a Gemini, so I'm familiar with I
love every air sign, so it's just like a...
Yeah, I have a lot of air placements. I need to learn more about the houses, like you said, because you had mentioned your, I think isn't your Aries moon in your 10th house? Fourth house. I think in my mind I read it 10th house because, I might be talking about my ass.
It's my only planet.
Might be talking about my ass.
Me too.
I'm literally
Let's go back to our notes.
Yeah. Before we start talking about our asses about astrology.
Yeah, I think back to a spiritual awakening, I do think it felt like I assumed that it would feel like floating on a cloud. Beautiful. And it has absolutely been the exact opposite. It's so much deep, shadowy stuff. And just like you were talking about earlier, I didn't understand, and I think this is problematic for almost every human on the planet. I didn't understand how my physical body was a perfectly tuned biofeedback machine that is always telling me in real time the quality of my thoughts, whether they're true or not. And instead, what I was doing was interpreting the sensations that my body was giving me as being confirmation of whatever I was thinking about. Like, yeah, my body agrees. Instead, my body's like, would you knock the fuck off?
Calm down, Craig.
Yeah. Change the subject. Yes. What are you doing? It's awful.
Yeah.
Like, you feel bad. And I'm like, no, just punish myself a little bit more. Yeah. And so then that is when that addiction to the stressor chemicals that get released in our body cortisol. When we're in that reflex, epinephrine, norepinephrine, all of it.
Oh my gosh. Adrenaline, cortisol, my body. It's drugs. I remember the first time, because being a female of a certain age, we get a lot of hormone panels done. But the first time my cortisol level was measured, the doctor asked me if I was going through a divorce or had had a death in the family. My cortisol levels were so high. And I was like, no, but I did just open my own business. Right. He was like, oh, that'll do it. That'll do it too. So, but I had never, not only did I knew what, yes, I'm not dumb. I knew what cortisol was and that we could have a cortisol spike. But I never thought of it as like your A1C will tell you if you're diabetic.
Right.
Okay, well, you can measure your hormone levels and see what the fuck is going on both inside and outside, because it's a direct reflection. I heard an interesting theory last night that's been rattling around in my head, which was a woman saying that she thinks that our second brain, our microbiome, is the
first brain.
Yeah, or the voice of our, like our shadow. You know what I mean? There's
so subconscious.
Subconscious, like
Yeah.
the two conversations that we have going on. And she linked it to a whole bunch of other stuff, and I can't do any justice to it or reference it. But one of the things that she had spoken to, which ties into this and what I was talking about, me crying in the shower. So I went for 3 months without being able to eat anything, nutrition or anything. And so I was living on bone broth and, I mean, I would say sips of protein drinks and energy, but I really couldn't hold much down. So it was watered down Gatorade, bone broth and stuff. And my physical body changed because I was not taking any nutrients, but it affected my brain so much. Like I remember most of the time being like kind of floaty out of my body. And this is pre and post near death experience, which was totally separate from that. But like I would just be completely disassociated from my body because it was such an uncomfortable place to be. And then something would happen that would force me back into it, and I'd be hyper aware of what a miserable sensation it was. And so what she was saying was that the relationship that we form with, and that's why a lot of religious practices incorporate fasting into the part of I wasn't voluntarily fasting by any stretch, but I did the biggest fast I had ever done in my existence. And one of the things that I knew, like whenever I started coming back to life, was that I had changed my microbiome. Like I had changed my gut chemistry, and I couldn't explain it anything other than I just knew it was different.
Yeah.
The way that
so interesting.
Yeah, even I don't know, it just changed everything. And until I heard her say that on a TikTok last night, I had not really, I mean, I had thought about it and thought, because I've read some of the studies on people who have had, I'm trying to think of a polite or delicate way to say this. When they've had C. diff, and the cure for C. diff is what we called a poop smoothie when I worked at Mercy Hospital. It's a fecal transfer. They take, because our biome, people that live together, so my bacteria on my skin and in my body is very similar to Barrett's. And in order to help someone, because that's what the C. diff does, is just takes over your whole gut flora and fauna. And so they have to reintroduce healthy. Well, what they have found is people who live with an overweight person, they do the fecal transfer, and that person changes nothing except for that transfer, and then they start gaining weight, and vice versa. They've done it with, heavy people have gotten the microbiome of a thin person and they've lost weight without trying. And so what they're figuring out is that it has a lot to do with the flora and fauna in our gut as to what turns the genetics on that tell our body gain weight, lose weight, what is homeostasis, because that's what our bodies are looking for any time, just to stay at whatever normal is. Or most of our bodies. By the way, we're not doctors. We forgot to say that. We're not doctors. Don't take your medical advice from a podcast, actually, ever. And unless your doctor has one, I guess. And then,
we're just sharing our experience.
Yeah,
and the limited research we've done on things.
Yes. Thank you. Anyway, that is something that I find fascinating because it is something I have literally experienced myself. The things like one of the only food that I can think of right now off the top of my head that I hated my whole life was watermelon. I hated it. And now I love it. Like eat it obsessively. Yeah. And I would have not ever even tried it. Barrett's the one that talked me into trying it. But I've always hated it so much that it tasted like dirt to me, like earth. Like, and now it still kind of has an earthy taste to it, but I like. Anyway, wrap this all up. The spiritual awakening part of it, I think, actually happened over a much longer course of time than what I attributed, because I had being struck by lightning experience of having a near death. And so I feel like I was probably already on the path of another spiritual awakening. I think I've had several throughout my lifetimes, but this is the first time that my meat suit has been a part of it. Like it wasn't just, deal thinking.
No, I think that makes absolute sense. And I agree. I would say probably over the past 10-ish years, I've been going through, for my entire 30s,
it's 10 years
going through a transformation. And don't get me wrong, I'm not finished by any means, but we talked last episode of and then there was this really intense part of the 10 years that was the goo phase, right? And that is so important to acknowledge, because emotionally I really had to do a lot of work to accept that was the phase that I was in. But But yeah, I had some preconceived notions of what a spiritual awakening would look like. And then I remember sending like memes and shit to my friends who were kind of into this stuff too. And it always made me cringe, but it would be like ascension symptoms list. Be like, I'm not insane. Other people are doing it too. Or whatever, you know, yes. Going through it too. And now that the planets this year, like those same memes are making we're in ascension symptoms again.
Well, but that's a bunch of people waking up. Yeah. Like so of course.
And I think there always has been. I did think I was special. I was going through it along with absolutely without other people, but I realized no, a lot of us have been. Well, Peter also helped me recognize that.
Not only that, but Jessa Reed actually said this first, but because she thought she was special because she had her spiritual awakening about 10 years ago too, which was when mine and yours started. But she was like, no, we were slow learners. We just needed 10 years to be up to where everybody that was just going to jump in. Because like my friend Allie Harder, hey girl, hey, she just recently went through a very powerful, and I'll let her tell her story. I hope that she comes on here and talks about it, but this very powerful and very, public transformation, spiritual awakening, crash out, whatever you want to call it. And I mean, boom, she's online. Like she would have, I never knew her as a spiritual person. I'm also trying not to do this. Like the part of the podcast that I watched last time, I talk with my hands a lot, and I don't even know that I mean air quotes when I do it, by the way. So y'all can just bunny foo-foo.
Bunny foo. But I'm on the head.
I say that, I've watched her crash out really hard and then boom, she got back up. And now she is like sending me shit and she is on it. Like the things that her brain just unlocks, and she's a savant on figuring out language, and I don't even know a better way to say it, but meanings and reading esoteric writings and being able to translate. It's amazing. But like she did that, and what has taken me 10 years of accumulating and cumulative knowledge, she's blown away, which it makes me laugh because she'll say, oh my gosh, this is the stuff that you've been talking about and telling me, and I finally get it now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've spent really longer than that because I've been digging into the woo-woo stuff for 30 years, I would say. So I've spent 30 years studying and reading, and by studying, I mean just like reading all the books I could get my hands on of all the woo-woo stuff that I'm interested in, and she got it like funneled into her. So we're both in awe of one another, where she's like, wow, you already knew all this. And I'm like, I mean, kind of, but.
Right, and you figured it out in 9 months.
Right, yeah. And I mean, like,
a spiritual baby.
And like some of the stuff, like when the download of information that I get, it is like, I call it riding lightning. Like this will feel like a high for a few days, and you have to kind of reel yourself in and be like, no, I'm not special.
Right. Better than
No.
I really would walk around like I have so much more knowledge.
I'm so in tune with the universe and my inner self and my higher self. Yeah.
In the background, I'm like, ChatGPTing, am I insane?
Yeah.
Should I go
check myself in to a little grippy sock?
Let me run this scenario by you.
My goodness. I know. And then whenever I heard that they were using our conversations with ChatGPT as a learning model, but I was like, good luck. Good luck with my contribution to you're welcome. That little synapses in the circuitry, extra woo from me to you.
Yep,
you're welcome.
So if you're looking for signs that you're in the thick of it and none of what we just said resonated, which it probably will, like emotional whiplash, feeling good one day, feeling not so good the next, trying your best. I mean, I judged myself harshly. And so if I have any advice, it's to not do that, because that's not helpful.
No. Also to not believe your bullshit. Like I had to learn to run it through is this true? Is this true for me today? Which is a lot of, as far as like being on a spiritual journey. We've got to find some better language for it, because
we're over it.
Yeah.
If I hear well-being one more time. True.
It is true, but it is. What was that? So a big thumbs down just popped up on the screen.
We don't know.
Okay. Well, we won't go there. I guess I don't even know what the fuck I was about to say. That was so weird.
Not a clue.
Yeah. I was listening to Handsome. Do you ever listen to the Handsome? I listen to a lot of podcasts, by the way. One of the things that,
and I have not at all lately. So.
Well, and last week when you had said that you were able to drive to Houston and back just listening to music, and I have been listening to music, and I've been making a point to listen to music because, well, number one, I don't think I need to constantly be fed information. Like, it just quiets the yippy part of my brain.
I get it.
I could cook and listen to a podcast and just, I can't even explain it to you, hold no tension in my body, just be in such a neutral, happy place. And listening to I love Tig Notaro. She's one of my favorite people. And she was talking about, well, now, of course, I'm talking about her and I'm thinking about her and I'm getting bucked off of what I was listening to them talk about. But she was talking about her holding energy in her meat suit body and feeling big feelings and trying not to be in that space constantly. And I guess that was my point that I was trying to make, is I do that a lot. Like, I find myself being way deep, like in the woo-woo off a lot. And I think I should probably reel that back in and maybe be a little bit more in the real people world.
Right. I know. It's a delicate dance for sure. I think I go through phases also where I'm inputting a lot of information, and then times where Neil and I were talking about this recently because he notices it too. Because I had described it last week as like, I know I'm sort of in a good place when I can just listen to music and I don't. But then I didn't, as that was coming out of my mouth, I didn't want you to take it the wrong way.
No,
like,
you know what I mean? But like, I think I do need to be reflective.
Like, you're doing
bad. No. I don't take stuff
you
like
must
that.
Be doing that. Yeah, because I don't think that that's it.
You probably felt my energy, which, you know, but to be a little self-assessment. But I mean, half the time if Barrett walks up to me to talk to me, he will pick my hair up to see if I have an earbud in my ear before he starts talking, because, you know, 9 times out of 10,
you're in your own.
I am, and I haven't really thought about it, but it is a little disassociative, and it is a barrier between me and the actual world.
I feel like maybe if you are also a projector, put this, you know, and relate to this, because it could be an energy type difference also.
True.
And that, so, because Neil and I are both generators, so it's possible that you are having just a completely different experience with sound, you know, and the different types of sounds that are out there.
Didn't know that was one of my big things for a long time, but sound is a big trigger for me. I can remember certain things that had happened, like loud noises that startled me, and I just immediately start crying.
Yeah.
And then feel like an idiot or feel like you're being overly dramatic. And it's just I'm not upset. It's just my body's way of regulating that. And
crying or
I usually, pissed is, which we recently had and I don't know that it was directed at me so much as you were just pissed at the situation, but at the showcase at Rock Camp, whenever they called us up on stage, we were so completely caught off guard, and it worked out so great, and I'm proud of both of us for doing it. But our trauma responses are so totally different. I just fawn. And I'm just like, okay, well, I guess this is what I'm doing. Okay. And Joan was like, wait, what? And then I think you also looked at me and you were like, well, I'm not going to leave her twisting in the wind. So I guess I'm going to do this. And then while we were standing literally on the stage of the Tower Theater in front of, I don't know how many, at least 500 people.
Yeah. The biggest audience we've ever had.
For sure. For the Joan and Denise show. For, you know, seeing in front of 500 people, you were mindful enough, you looked at me and you were like, I'm sorry that I went to piss like that for a second, but my God, and I saw it and I was like, yeah, I know. I mean, no, totally cool. I didn't take it personally at all, but I get it. That is my reaction. Normally I will go to pissed, or I will have like that body thing. Like I will either feel tired or I will cry. And I don't like any of those options. Right. I feel hijacked when it happens. I don't like feeling like I'm at the mercy of my meat suit. Hands off. I didn't even know what I was grabbing.
I didn't even realize how much I touch my body until I'm realizing that I should probably stop.
Thank you. Yeah. Or how much I wiggle around. I know. I'm trying to stay in one place and not be so wiggly. But don't call it a spiritual awakening unless you want to cry in the shower. I didn't know how disruptive, unsettling, isolating.
Yeah, where you were going through all of this, but you weren't talking about it with a lot of people, right?
No.
Yeah. So I had a couple friends that I could kind of have this language with, and then I could easily be two different people, and you would never know.
I can
Never
code
the two
switch.
should meet. I can speak to you
Can't.
dominant culture kind of way, and you would never know that I believe in aliens.
One of the things of like, so we addressed it last time, but I have scorching ADHD. Going on Vyvanse has really changed my ability to mask a whole lot. Like it's a much more concerted effort whenever I am reeling it in. Like I feel a lot more just like blunt myself.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know that it's a bad thing, depending on who I'm talking to,
Yeah.
I guess. But yeah, most people do not know that, well, especially the alien part of it. Like I was talking to, when I was being interviewed on that podcast, because referenced the near-death experience 3 times, I think, in this little episode now, but what I call a little vignette part of it that's very spacey. Like it was the disembodied part of me that was outside of my body, and I'm very aware that I was outside of my body, was looking at a encapsulated bubble that I was looking into, that was a whole thing that was happening inside it, like if it was a movie or whatever, but it was not. And it was very 3D. Like what I was looking at was also like, it had depth. It wasn't like I was looking at a screen. But anyway, what I was looking at was what I now recognize as this version of me. It was a woman that looked like me. At the time, I was much heavier and blonde, and like I looked different than I look right now. But the woman that I was looking at in that little vignette looked like this version of me.
So wild.
Right. In that interview, he asked me if I thought that I was looking at a future version of me or an alien version of me. I don't know. I don't even know how to explain what happened to me, let alone what happened inside of what happened. I don't know how to explain that. And I don't really know what to do with it either, because everything that I remember so vividly feels really important. So the fact that I remember that, like I brought that back with me, okay, well, I was supposed to remember, and maybe it was supposed to know that this version of me would eventually be, because it was when I changed my hair to, because she had long hair. And I haven't had long hair, but it was when I saw me with this, and I was like, oh, that's her. That is her. I look like her. It's wild. Yeah. And maybe that's why I keep saying I've taken on my final form. Like, this is my final form.
This is the avatar.
I guess.
Yeah.
I do think we get to choose them.
I do too.
But
I do too.
And I think the conversation that we have with our meat suits affects the way we look.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
I had to explain that to a muggle person. And it was not the answer she wanted to hear. I will assure you that. Are you fucking kidding me? Look back.
Yeah. Well, and I get that, right? Because a lot of, I mean, even if not to go sideways in this issue, but we definitely don't want you to change Avatar mid-game. But,
right.
And if you do, we have like problems with that.
Right.
Whether no matter the issue might be presenting that you would like to change about your avatar.
Right. Agreed.
And other avatars really uncomfortable.
I have been an avatar changer too. Yeah. Like I have looked, in fact, my friend Jim Myers, hey girl, hey, when he saw pictures of me, I'm trying to remember how long ago it was. It was probably 15 years ago. He saw pictures of me when I was young, when I was probably about 15 years old. And he was like, who is that? That does not even look like you have a different nose. Like, that's a different nose. And I was like, well, maybe because I still had, like baby fat on my cheeks and everything. And he was like, that is a different nose. Did you have a nose? And I said, do you think I would have selected this nose if I had a nose job?
I like your nose.
Thank you. I have grown to I've grown to appreciate my nose. Jennifer Grey, her journey with her nose really taught me a lot about being a woman with a prominent nose. It's kind of like being, I don't know, being like, if you have gigantic boobs, you're going to find your people that like, you know what I mean? You'll attract your people. And there are people that like people with it. I'm a person that likes people with.
I love a big nose.
That is one of the things that I'm most attracted to as on a human, on a man. When I'm looking for a person, they have to have a big, good, interesting looking nose. And that is not anything that I was aware of until it was pointed out to me. And then once it was pointed out to me, I couldn't unsee it. But I mean, like if there was, because I always thought I didn't have a type.
Right.
Or anything, like that. But talking about going back to meat suits and learning to appreciate it. I'm appreciative of the relationship that I have with my meat suit now. And I think a lot of people project onto me, believe that it is because I am probably more fit than I ever have been. And while that is true, I do like being like in a physically fit shape because I feel better. But there's not ego. There's not vanity. I mean, yeah, I guess yes. We all have ego and we all have. But I mean, like I appreciate the meat suit that I'm existing in because of the way that it functions and that I get to feel good until like days like yesterday suck. But even that, like the lesson that I feel like I got yesterday was that. And that's anytime I feel super triggered in a direction of extreme fear, which is what I think I was reacting to yesterday, was I was afraid that I was about to be really sick again and that I was powerless to it. I mean, that was the story that I was telling myself anyway. And I touched that third rail of I am so grateful and so appreciative that when I woke up this morning, the first thing I did was, how do I feel? And I felt normal. I felt normal and fine.
Amazing.
And, and I'm so grateful. I just have to say, y'all are going to get sick of me praising my husband, but he's also a nurse. So that's him automatically swinging into caretaker mode. But I mean, like he had worked all day yesterday and came home to my very sad, nauseated to the point of just laying in bed with the trash can beside me in a dark room. And he just kicked into triage mode and was just, and so that was the first thing when we woke up this morning was, how do you feel? And I said, I feel fine. So whatever was going on yesterday, came and went. But I'm appreciative of the reminder that not only is it not like that, I mean, like, but that's an eventuality that we all have to accept. And that's probably like touching on a different subject that I want to talk about on end of life stuff and preparing for death stuff. I'm in the middle of a death doula training program that, when I say in the middle of it, I've been on pause for months now, so I haven't finished it. But grief work, which is what you were dealing with yesterday.
Absolutely. I do TNR in my neighborhood, which is trap and release cats specifically. One of my first success stories was trapping this mom and her old litter of kittens, and it took me years to get the mom, and then I finally did, and then she sort of moved onto my property and was like, I'm going to stay forever. Well, she passed away yesterday, and I knew that she was sick, and I had been kind of apathetic about it. And my mom several times was like, I think we should trap her. I think we need to take her in. I'll pay for it. And I was really apathetic. I was really pessimistic. And she's going to be so hard to catch. And so then when we found her dead yesterday, I just really beat myself up about it. I felt like it was all my fault and that I had failed her. And why was I? But I realized it's sort of like a weird caregiver fatigue. I had just the week before handed off 2 kittens that I had domesticated and raised. And I am constantly doing that kind of work in my neighborhood, and I wasn't really looking at it that way. And so I was just beating the shit out of myself about it, and I was like uncontrollably sobbing, which I didn't see coming. I was like, what is happening?
No, I know. My body got hijacked yesterday too. The crying part, I was like, why am I crying?
Which one I love again. My friend Reagan reminded me of this too. She was like, I love a good exit on a full moon. It was like Lionsgate, no less, too.
Yeah, you're right.
It's an epic way to go.
I know. She wrote that. She was riding a huge wave of energy off this plane.
And just this week, she let me pet her for the first time, and she let my mom pet her. And so I think it was her way of saying goodbye. But in the work that I do in EMCS sessions, when the stomach comes up, it's literally about not being able to digest whatever the issue is, right? And it can also be about digesting the lesson. And it's like, have you learned the lesson? So I think it's so cool to be able to next day, one, your stomach literally was feeling better.
Right.
Right. Because you've been able to digest the
yes. And then I even got the lesson.
Right. It's like, that's the spiritual work that we're talking. I mean, I think in a nutshell, it's like, yeah, we both had shitty fucking days, and those are going to happen. And I'm sure you guys get that, but it still can be so easy to be hard on yourself, and then you trigger yourself, and then problem gets a little bit worse because you're like, oh no.
Well, then you ride a negative energy wave all the way to wherever it ends, if you choose to let it end. I mean, like I've known people that are determined to live sad, 100%. Miserable lives.
And that's that reflex addiction to those stressor chemicals that they would never acknowledge. That
probably aren't aware.
Right.
I would say some of the people that come to mind that I've either dealt with or, known operating pretty instinctively is the word I'm going to choose to use, just kind of asleep.
I can see myself in so many ways.
I was for
like and if shit started to settle down and feel peaceful, that was so wildly uncomfortable to me that I would create some shit.
Yes.
And I would have never admitted that in a million years because life was happening to me, my friend.
I was a victim.
I was not participating,
I was a victim. I remember, here's another thing that I'm hyper aware of. I'm trying not to say names. I'm trying not to out people but also, my friend Annie gave me permission a long, long time ago when she said if they wanted you to speak not kindly of them, they would have behaved better. So, yeah, as long as you're telling the truth, as like your version of, as long as I am telling my actual story of an interaction, I feel like it's kind of fair game.
Yeah.
But I worked in a salon and my life was nothing but shit show drama. And I mean, straight up, nothing but shit show drama. I wasn't aware of it because I had never known anything but shit show drama. But been working an Al-Anon program for probably about 4 years at this time. And I had reached a level of emotional sobriety. I do mean to say do air quotes when I say that because I was not emotionally sober at all. I had just enough therapy, Al-Anon, and meeting speak and verbiage to be a total asshole and a menace, just awful. Anyway, a person that I worked with said, I think you're addicted to drama. And it fucking flamed me up so hard. I was like, rude. I will have you.
And rude.
Yeah. And sure, whatever.
Call me by my name.
Right. So I reacted not well to that. And I've read her for filth on why I was obviously not. Hello, 4 years in Al-Anon, and I've done a 4th step, and I'm blah, blah, whatever dumbass shit fuckery I said. And now I look back at that person, I'm like, oh my God, my life was so, and I was addicted to drama.
Yeah.
And I did not know that was my addiction. And now, I mean, knowing what I know about my brain chemistry now, I literally was making those chemicals and riding certain highs, and calm was dangerous.
So uncomfortable. Yeah.
And so, of course, I had to create a little bit of a current because I mean, how else would I know I was alive? But I guess I'm just grateful that I'm not there now because, my God, the amount of energy it takes to have a very dramatic life. Maybe that's it. Maybe we just all kind of hit our 40s and start chill the fuck out.
I did get an upgrade. I felt like I have gotten a massive, I love my 40s.
Well, my 40s were the beginning of the best part of my life, for sure. I loved turning 40. So far, my 50s have been the best so far, but that's, my gosh.
Yeah.
Gosh. Oh my gosh, being 50. I turned 50 and got married a few days later. So there's that, like 4 days after I turned 50. We did break the 7th seal and cause a global pandemic. Sorry about that, everyone.
So powerful.
No, we had both said we were never. I said I was never getting married again, not out of any, my first experience was definitely not a good experience for me, but it just wasn't anything that I felt like I needed. Like, I felt like, oh my gosh, my life is great. I hadn't had a person show up as a partner. There was not a dude that showed up that felt like what they were bringing to the situation warranted disrupting my life in any way. Like, my life was great and fun and happy and safe and joyful, and my house was a great, fun, safe, joyful, happy place. Like, I didn't need somebody's gross son coming in there and doing,
Right.
And so it just was kind of I think I'll just, maybe my friends and I can cohabitate if we ever feel like we don't want to live alone. But I didn't see that. And then Barrett saying,
Still my back.
what? Yeah. A lavender marriage, ideally, if they have like good health insurance, because hairdressers historically don't. Or a Golden Girls situation was what I had always said.
One of the two.
And then Barrett was the same. Like he was not looking for marriage. So when we decided to do that, and mainly the reason that we decided to was, unfortunately, capitalism, but the world we exist in is structured toward it being a benefit.
Yeah. But now I get to hear you say my husband all the time, and that's really fun too.
I know. I am so glad that we got married. Like, I cannot even tell you. It's the Barrett showing up was that's a whole woo-woo story on its own. It's kind of like whenever you and I clicked, I knew that I was like, oh, Joan's one of my people. And I figured it was because like we have a similar look style. I mean, you're way hipper, trendier, but I mean like blue, light eyes, blonde, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like I felt like a kinship in that, in the way that we looked, but also, I don't know. Like I saw Barrett on the sidewalk outside of Granddad's fucking bar and like knew the minute that he and I locked eyes, I was like, okay, yeah, he's one of my people. Cool. But I didn't know what way or capacity. He didn't approach me like a dude. Like he was not trying to hit on me, or if he was, it didn't come off in a way that I thought. And I approached him anyway. I mean, like I had said, I was commending him on being a white knight rescuing his really drunk sister off a dance floor, and the immediate like knowing part of that thing happened. Anyway, just being in tuned, I guess, is where I'm going with all that. But I had that, I think, with you too. It would have been at yoga teacher training, I'm sure. Anyway, didn't mean to hijack it on that.
So, okay, as we're sort of wrapping up here, what are some ways that you find help you the most not get stuck in the drain?
Physically moving my body.
Yeah.
Yesterday, the shake plate was the only thing that I could manage to do. And even then, that was for about 3 whole minutes. And I thought, oh my God, my brain's going to liquefy and like drain out my ears. It was so bad. Even as hot as it was outside, walking around barefooted out there in the grass while Stella was going to the bathroom. So yeah, physically that.
And if you can't go outside, bring the earth inside. And this is where crystals can really be helpful. Of like when you're talking about the second dimension, right? And you're like pulling something out of the second dimension and carrying it with you to literally ground you. It's cliche and cringy, but like shove some shit in your pockets or your bra. It really helps. Yeah. If you can't get your feet to the outside.
Yeah. I even had my smoky quartz. I had my hair all pushed back in a headband yesterday, but while I had that, I popped my smoky quartz underneath my headband that I had on top of my head, and I was ready to call in an exorcist. Like it was so bad. And I haven't had a migraine in a really long time, so I'm not really sure what to do with that. I'm just hoping that I'm hoping that it just doesn't happen again. And I'm kind of trying to make that my reality.
Yeah.
Like, that is not in my reality.
Right.
I do not have migraines. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would say checking in with my meat suit would be a number one thing, because more than likely I'm holding that energy somewhere. I am either very tense, or
I noticed yesterday I kept gasping for air. I kept sighing really big.
Too.
And I was like, oh yeah, the lungs are grief. Like that makes sense to me too. And like, so I wasn't breathing deeply of life. I was like super shallow breathing, and my body would be like, breathe.
Even I was getting onto myself for being a little dramatic. Like I really was like, well, calm down. Like, why are you? But that instinctive breathing. Also, I mean, like talking about it, being honest about it. I'm really lucky. Again, like Barrett has just enough woo-woo in him that he can listen to me. And he's also a nurse. So his favorite thing that he tells me all the time is, yeah, well, somebody's got to talk to the cops. At the end of the day, somebody's got to talk to the cops. So while I was telling him that I felt like I was having an energetic purge, because that's what it felt like to me. He said, yeah, do you have a fever? Like, you know, I mean, he was doing his physical assessment, and I think that's great. Like, I need that too.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we can come at it from all angles.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What about you?
Tapping, didn't do it yesterday though.
I did not tap yesterday either.
One time.
I didn't either.
Yeah. Mostly breath work. I took a long walk. That actually happened before shit started to fall apart, but I was really grateful that I had. And naps, I think actually naps are my number one tool. Shut her down. It took me a while yesterday because I was having like the imagery of finding her,
so sorry.
you know, but I was able to switch it. Like, one, I connected to her energy and felt a solid connection to her. So then I was just talking to her a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I caught her playing 2 or 3 times ever, where like a leaf was blowing in the wind and she was like the stiffest little old lady body and just a tiny, and she was kind of bony, and she just never got a chance to be a cat. So the few times I caught her playing with the wind, basically, I was like, oh my God. And so I was able to channel that and bring that in. And that was like immediately, I mean, she was like, yeah, hang on to that, sis. Like,
because we get to choose
how
we connect to their energy.
Yeah. Me dwell it. And this is where the mental practice of training my brain, which takes fucking diligence, you know, of not like, I am more in control of what I think about these days than I ever have been. And
Same.
I didn't used to be able to do that, and I wouldn't have been able to claim it, but I've spent time learning how to concentrate so that when shit like that happens, I do have access to something else.
I can choose my thoughts.
Right. I can choose my thoughts, and I can be like, you know, I could keep doing that, or I could do something that feels better. And I really want to feel better these days.
And sometimes you do have to just masturbate on the bad thought. Sure. Take it all the way to wherever you have to go with it.
I let myself cry.
Same. Yeah. Well, and like yesterday, it all just happened. I think as soon as I got in the shower and got really warm, and I thought that was going to make me feel better.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, I'm just going to shampoo my hair. I'm just going to take a good shower and it'll make me feel better. And it didn't. And then I was so nauseous that standing in the shower felt like work.
Right.
And that took me back to my sick, failing body. And I just got really scared.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I've said. My husband knows this. My children know this. Joan knows this. Like, I don't want to be in a body that doesn't work.
We're taking her to a field.
Thank you. Full stop. Back over me with a card. Just make it count. Do whatever you got to do. I prefer it to be quick and painless would be optimal. But I mean, like, do what you got to do, because the dying part sucks no matter how you go about it. My experience was being in a sick and dying body, thumbs down. But once you pop out, it's bliss.
Right.
And it happens pretty quickly. And on that, like, you know, like connecting with Rose's energy, my dad passed away back in February, and I feel his energy around me all the time. He does check-ins, I think, on all of us all the time. I know he's probably hanging around my mom the most. My niece. Yeah. My niece, Katie. Well, I mean, I think he's waiting on her. I mean, right. They've been together since they were children. So that makes sense to me. But he has only reminded me of, and I guess as they would when they come through, but he's such the way I've explained my dad to Joan is I've said he was kind of a biff. Like, he was kind of a funny, he was funny in a big brothery kind of way. But like, you know, he'd be the one that would always like, he'd definitely be the one that would mess up your hair, or you know, get over here. He's real.
Must scob your knob.
Scob your knob. My God, my knob has been scobbed so many times. It's like, or, you know, I hate being, Barrett and I share a thing in common of we have tickle trauma, which sounds like a fucking documentary.
No, so real.
Oh my God, that man, he would hold me down and tickle me until I would cry.
It's the worst.
I hated it.
Don't ever do that to kids.
It was so bad. But he thought it was hilarious. But I was on my mat doing yoga the other day, and he buzzed the tower just to say, remember when I used to call it yogurt? And that was the way, you know, that was the way his nature with me. You're doing your yogurt. And, you know, he's still very much him.
Right.
When I was out of my meat suit, I was still very much me. Like, the way I was even panicking and trying to right like the ship.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, our personality lives on in our causal field, and it carries with us lifetime to lifetime. Our circumstances obviously will be different, and that will shape us a little bit differently. Sure. But I think in general, we have kind of the same demeanor from lifetime to lifetime.
Question. This is off the cuff, on the fly, real time question. Do you feel like we incarnate under different signs to help incorporate those facets of that personality in order to help shape the energy, the personality of that lifetime?
Yeah, I think
genuinely do too.
Yeah, I think because, right, astrology and human design even, and I'd never, again, shout out to Peter, I'd never thought about it quite this succinctly, but it's like describing archetypes, like I'm a Libra, whatever, it's a way to describe time.
Yes.
And when he said it, like, I was like, oh my fucking God. Yeah.
You
right.
know my relationship with time. First of all, it's not real.
And it's
only real here. Right. I was just going to say, the way we experience time.
Yeah.
Linearly, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Only happens here in this 3D matrix that we are suspended in right now. And we only have the construct of time because we literally instill it in us all day, every day. We run on schedules. We have clocks. Yeah. That's why when you go to a casino, there's not a clock. I mean, like they fuck with our.
They want to.
And I say they. I'm not really sure who they is, but casino owners and that. But experiencing time and archetypes is how we experience time. That is such a good. I'm going to have to chew on that a little bit.
So, to come back to it, I think, if I needed all the tools in the world, right? Like, say I'm a handyman, and in my truck, I could take my whole shed of every tool that I have access to, but that would make my truck kind of heavy. So I might not need access to some of those tools in this lifetime. I can get them if I need to, but for the most part, I'm going to make decisions that pick these certain tools because this is what I'm trying to learn this life.
Which was something that I feel like we should probably get into at some point on why we incarnate, how we incarnate, how we choose. I do not believe in like it's predestined, but I do feel like we write the script, we write the treatment, the plot, and then we don't get to choose. Well, we do get to choose our main core group of actors that we interact with.
I think we make some decisions ahead of time about who we're going to come in with and
when.
And and even to speak frankly about that, like I'm sure my dad and I probably had some kind of crazy looking conversation before we incarnated.
Where like buzzing around this morning.
I am going to be this crazy alcoholic who's mentally ill and it's going to fuck you up. And me saying something like, are you sure? Because that sounds like that might suck for you.
Right?
And you're like, no, I'm going to do it because then you'll, and I'm taking one for the team because I'm going to be the bad guy, right? Like
we are talking macro, soul level perspective on a higher vision. But if I can get there, and don't think that I embody this or hold this place at all times because I don't and I cannot. But I've done enough work around what you're talking about to be able to see. I have capital T trauma. Trigger warning to anybody that's listening to this. We will be talking about all sorts of any type of trauma, but sexual abuse is a part of my capital E trauma from my childhood. And one of my biggest things that I have, and I do not hold this at all times, trust. But I can conceptualize it around that we play monster roles in other people's lives. And I know that in our little human meat suit existence right now, that sounds fucking insane. Yeah. It also sounds a little victim co-conspiratorial or whatever. Right. There is not a part of me as a toddler or as a little girl that, consented to any part of what happened on any level that I was able to rationalize throughout most of my life. That was something that happened to me. I probably did embody victimhood for the longest time because that was trapped and encapsulated in shame and all of that stuff. But once I started doing my own shadow work and recognizing my own monster role that I've played in other people's lives, because we all have. And there are people out there, maybe somebody that's watching this, and I was the biggest villain. Like I was a villain in that, whatever that role was. There are a few people that I can think of that rightfully so. Right. And then there are a few people that would probably catch me so off guard that I'd be like, wow, crazy. Sorry, I guess. But so in doing the shadow work of examining my own is when I've recognized that, yes, I am not that person anymore. I'm just not her.
And to be clear too, I think this is in a way what I'm speaking on is a lot of call and tipping, radical forgiveness.
For sure.
Point of view, perspective on looking at a macro view.
Yeah, yes.
You can't get here to here.
No.
Like you got to edge yourself.
For sure.
The edging process.
Yeah. Yes.
Please don't, as we're talking about having a spiritual awakening, thinking God, I can't just forgive everybody in my life all of a sudden. I didn't. And it was really hard for me for a super long time which is why how I found Dr. Cone. And that was like my first sentence to him. I was like, I'm so tired of being a victim of my life. I'm so tired of being mad at my mother. Like, because I turned into a bully.
I mean, like, just being mad, period.
Yeah.
Like, I have felt victimized in so many different directions. And some of them are, I mean, like, people make really shitty choices. And some really shitty choices were made that caused a lot of harm in my life. Were they doing it intentionally? I mean, some of them were, and some of them weren't. They were just doing the best they could with what they had at the time. The only thing that I struggle with is I've done so much work, and I felt like it was at the behest of the people around me that wanted me to be a better version of myself. So this is where resentment comes in. But
Sure.
I have done nothing but self-work for the last, really, if I told the truth, 20 plus years. But I've been doing Al-Anon recovery work for 17 years. My niece Katie had just been born, so 17 years. And it was in the 12-step process of, I like to say, my first meeting, and if you've never done any sort of 12-step recovery work, probably won't mean a whole lot to you, but there are, the steps are in order for a reason. Well, my first meeting was a 9th step meeting. And I was like, these people are fucking crazy. I'm a victim. And so basically they were talking about how they got to make amends to everyone, and how blah blah blah, they're keeping their side of the street clean, and just what sounded like absolute cuckoo banana batshit crazy talk to me. Like, I was like, okay, so now after all of this, I get to go and apologize to these people. Right. Fuck all the way off.
Yeah.
But also what happened during that meeting was they just emphasized so much that, number one, nobody expects you to understand this. Like, you are on day one. And I don't know what made me believe that. I do know what made me believe them. It was my friend Hal, who, like I said, we lost him, I think, 11 years ago to cancer. Damn it. But he was the first person I met in that meeting, and he was the one that was emphasizing, like, none of this is going to make any sense. What we're about to say is going to sound like a big load of horseshit to you, and that's fine, And I believed him. Number one, he looked a lot like Tommy Lee Jones, and
trust Tommy.
Yes, he had a big Tommy Lee Jones look and energy about him that just made me feel real secure with, like, this dude's not going to tell me some bullshit. And I don't know, I latched onto that. And the people that were saying this stuff were also happy, like, genuinely seemed happy.
Right.
And I was miserable.
Right.
So I was willing to trade 1 hour a week for the opportunity to see what they were talking about. So when I say that to say, Joan and I are like, we've done the 12 steps 487 times. And it is through that work and falling on our face and having to eat a little bit of crow and circle back around and say, oh my gosh, I was still needed to do some work in that area.
Right.
That we can get to a point that we can say, I can see how someone who was abusive to me chose that from a higher perspective, because I have been that role in other people's lives, and I know who I am. I did not incarnate on this earth to be a demon or to be a disaster in everyone's lives. Like, I do not like that my working through that process came at the cost of just scrubbing all the gross inside stuff off on other people. But that's also the only model that I was given.
Right.
I was not
100%.
I had no healthy tools in my toolbox, and I'm just fortunate that I got them when I did, because I wouldn't be I wouldn't be sitting here saying, oh my gosh, in my 50s are the best part of my life.
Right.
Like but they are. It's done nothing but improve. And I want to be that, like, I'm not trying to be a beacon of hope, but I mean, like, I see so many people talk dread and older and aging and rock and roll camp for girls. I don't know that I'm the oldest volunteer, but I'm definitely up there in the Gen X-y older group of people. We've been doing it for 10 years now, so our volunteers are younger and younger. We've got first year campers coming back as volunteers now, which is mind-blowing. And they are such wonderful humans. My God, they give me faith that
100%.
We're going to be okay. I'm trying to land this plane. When I see the younger girls, like, appreciating me being me I don't know. Maddie is someone that that popped into my head, but who is, I don't even know if she's 30 years old. I don't think so. I think she's probably in her late 20s, maybe 30, but was just going off to get married and blah, 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 blah. And I was talking to her, and it doesn't matter. But the things that I was telling them, they were like, we need to take notes. Like, we need to take notes. And I was like, you guys just need some old lady friends is what you need. Because we were talking skincare, and they, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and I'm like, no. Let me tell you what you need and how you need to do it. Okay. And they were like, how do you know all this? I'm old. Like, I'm 55 years old, and I've done an okay job of preserving and taking it. Just listen to what, So I think on a spiritual, metaphysical level, that's a little bit of what we would like to do, is to help people see that regardless of where you come from, I found my guides. Like, I wasn't given any sort of a blueprint for a metaphysical or a spiritual or any type of a woo-woo life work. It was something that I fumbly found, and then was fortunate enough to just tap into the right people, Joan being one of them.
And
here we are.
Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I feel like we've talked about the drain in the shower enough. I didn't bring my cards or anything in here.
I just got a new deck too. I got the Dolly Tarot deck, and it's beautiful. It's like coffee table beautiful. I'll bring it next time.
Definitely.
It's sitting on my coffee table.
Like, we live in a 37-foot tube. It's not like it would be a long walk to go grab my cards, but they are all wrapped up. And Stella's like, yeah, wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
See you next time.